Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunaminitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So today is Srila Prabhupada's Holy Appearance Day, Vyas Puja, and I wanted to speak a few words to you all there in Tulansingo about Srila Prabhupada. I was requested to do something, so I had to pre-record it because I didn't have time to actually do it during the time of your program. So the meaning of Vyas Puja, shortly we'll give a small explanation. That Srila Vyasadeva, who is the literary incarnation of Krishna, who wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam and all the Vedas, we honor him on the Vyas Puja Day. Vyasadeva means Vyas Adev, and we worship our spiritual master on their appearance day as representatives of Srila Vyasadeva. So there's many different, every year they have somebody explain the meaning of Vyas Puja in Prabhupada's Vyas Puja book. So I'm just giving my own inspiration on this day for the meaning of Vyas Puja. Srila Prabhupada to me is similar to Vasudeva and Devaki in that Krishna appeared within Vasudeva and Devaki's mind and hearts because of their intense loving devotion for him, and because they're pure, he could appear within them and appear outside as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and display his wonderful pastimes and teachings. But he chose these pure devotees, Vasudeva and Devaki, to appear within. So I feel that seeing Srila Prabhupada, how powerful and how pure Srila Prabhupada is, and how he came to the West, and basically nobody knew who God was in the Western world. We had no real clear idea. And Srila Prabhupada taught us that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And not only did he teach us that, but he allowed us to be with him and experience some small portion of the ecstatic love of Krishna that he has. And his ecstatic love for Krishna extended to us, the living beings in the material world in Kali Yuga, who he came to deliver. And because of his ecstatic love for Krishna, he also has perfect, pure love for all living entities, compassion and love for all living entities. So all the persons whom he came in contact with were the recipients of Srila Prabhupada's ecstatic love for Krishna and his loving compassion. And his learning from the scriptures, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Goswami literatures, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, so many different literatures he's vastly learned in. So when he would explain Krishna to us, explain Bhagavad Gita to us, it was very clear that he knew Krishna and that he knew the subject matter perfectly and that he realized it. So he was able to travel and to basically, kind of in a sense, give birth to Krishna wherever he went. He came, and the different Vaishnava songs glorify the spiritual master for being able to give Krishna in the form of his name to everybody. And he installed the deities of Krishna all around the world, and himself personally or through his disciples. So he had the potency to bring, because Krishna was there within him, to distribute Krishna. So, to me on this day, thinking about his Vyas Puja, I feel that to me, he resembles the beautiful devotees Vasudeva and Devaki in the way that Krishna appeared to them and then Krishna became their child. So Krishna is also this movement, the Hare Krishna movement, ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is like Krishna. It's like Srila Prabhupada's divine child, because it's Krishna. He's distributing Krishna through this movement. So Prabhupada also reminds me of that someone here's somebody who is trying to carefully help as many living beings as possible on this planet and other planets to become Krishna conscious. My own personal experiences of Srila Prabhupada were, first of all, when I read his books. The Sri Upanishad was the first book that I had read, and I was completely convinced by whatever the Sri Upanishad said, to the point where I would go and speak that, whatever I had read, to other people. And then later, when I started chanting 16 rounds by Prabhupada's mercy, by Krishna's mercy, the Bhagavad Gita kind of turned on, in a sense that Krishna started to speak to me through the purports and everything and answer all my questions, whereas before I couldn't even read the book. But when I started chanting 16 rounds, then it became possible. Krishna made it available to me to understand, so that I could try to surrender to him. I wanted to surrender after I read Bhagavad Gita. So then we went, so my friend who exposed me to all this, he took me to I was living in Central California, a place called Santa Maria. And he took me to he invited me to come to San Francisco to meet some other devotees who later on became my lifelong elder godbrother, Tamal Krishna Goswami, Vishnu Jan Swami, and Tripurari Swami, who were on the Radha Damodar bus at that time. We stayed there a few days, then we went back to my house to get rid of all my material belongings, and I bought another little car, and we drove to Los Angeles a couple weeks later, or a week later, to see Srila Prabhupada as he came back from Hawaii and Fiji. So it was an amazing event. The devotees had just created the new temple room in Los Angeles, and they were cleaning every centimeter and repainting everything, and there was so much enthusiasm and love. All the devotees were so eager for Prabhupada to come that it was very amazing. I was totally amazed by the devotees' enthusiasm. And I even got to pose for some paintings, me and another new bhakta, that they did for the Caitanya Charitamrita. That was the time when they were printing the Caitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada invoked this beautiful marathon, 24/7. In 2 months, they published all 17 volumes of the Caitanya Charitamrita, so that was a miracle. And so I got to be part of, for a few minutes anyway, some photographs taken that they used for some paintings in the Caitanya Charitamrita. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada came. We went to the airport. There was hundreds of devotees at the airport to greet Srila Prabhupada. I was just new, so I was more or less trying to stay out of the way. Srila Prabhupada came in with a beautiful kirtan, and all the devotees were so ecstatic. He went to the temple, and he gave a very famous lecture where he's asking the devotees, kindly help me to print in as many languages as possible and to distribute these books all over the world. Kindly help me. So I got to be part of that lecture. It's a very famous lecture if you watch Your Ever Well-Wisher or watch the different footages of Srila Prabhupada's classes. That's one of the ones in Los Angeles where you see Srila Prabhupada looking up at the ceiling, because it's the first time he had ever been in the temple room to see the beautiful murals of Lord Caitanya on the ceiling. And he gave some classes there, and it was the first time I'd ever heard him speak. So it was difficult because I didn't understand his accent so clearly. But I was able to catch everything a little bit behind, a couple sentences behind. So we stayed there for a couple days, and I was staying at like an ashram across the street. And every day I got to eat the remnants of the sannyasis who got to eat Prabhupada's remnants. So I got to eat the remnants of the servants and of Prabhupada. And I got some direct maha from my friend Keshava, who made me a devotee, who was one of Prabhupada's personal servants, that he was able to get some of the personal things that Prabhupada bit off of. So I got to eat some direct maha prasadam from Srila Prabhupada, which I am totally indebted to Keshava for. Keshava passed away a few years ago. Anyway, so we got to stay there and hear Prabhupada give class. And then I went to San Francisco from Los Angeles to join the Radha Damodar party, where it was a bhakti program for many new devotees that were being made. Then we stayed there for about, I guess, almost a month, maybe 3 weeks to a month. Well, I guess it was 3 weeks as a bhakti program. And then we traveled to Denver, Colorado from San Francisco because Srila Prabhupada was going to Denver. So we went to Denver, and Srila Prabhupada gave class every day. So I got to go to the classes and listen to Srila Prabhupada speak. And my friend Keshava, who joined like in 1968, he asked me, he goes, "You want to go and see Srila Prabhupada?" And I said, "What do you mean, go and see Srila Prabhupada?" Because Srila Prabhupada was staying in the house directly across the street from the temple in Denver. He goes, "Yeah, let's go look through the window and see Srila Prabhupada." I was like, "Really? You know, you don't go and peep on people through windows, you know, but I guess it was okay in that sense. You go in there and watch and look at Srila Prabhupada." It was so we did. We went over there and looked for a minute, but Prabhupada wasn't in the room that we could view, so we didn't stay. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada gave more classes and then went to Chicago. So then we took the Radha Damodar bus I rode. I was one of the new Bhaktas, Bhakta Sai. And we drove to Chicago. Srila Prabhupada was already there. And tremendous experience just being there when Prabhupada was in the building, walking into the temple and feeling the total spiritual Shakti that made me feel like I wasn't, instantly realized I wasn't my body, and that I was like a spirit soul just kind of floating in the ecstasy of the atmosphere of the temple room. I was so amazed by how potent the atmosphere was in Srila Prabhupada's presence. Then we prepared for, we got to take a photograph with Srila Prabhupada, all the Radha Damodar party in their 4 buses. Sometimes you can look that up and see these buses, and Prabhupada's sitting very humbly on the ground on someone's chutter, and we're all gathered around there in the photo. But we were getting ready for the initiation and for the installation. There was 4 buses, so they installed 4 sets of beautiful, maybe 16-inch, maybe a little bigger, maybe 20-inch Gornitai deities to go on each bus. So that ceremony was there. Then we did then the initiation ceremony took place. So Srila Prabhupada gave a wonderful class, and right before the initiation, when we got there, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was my bhakta leader and the leader of the Radha Damodar party, him and Vishnu Jan Swami, he told me, he said, "Why don't you get initiated?" And I was just a devotee for 1 month, and I said, "Well, whatever you think, because you know what I should be doing. You're the leader." He said, "Yes, I think you should take initiation." So I said, "Okay," but nobody ever told us what we were supposed to do or what was going to be asked, or I didn't know anything about an initiation ceremony because we were just busy selling books and collecting money and helping clean the temple and decorate the temple. We never had anybody tell us, "Okay, here's what you do when you go in front of Prabhupada." So anyway, we had the installation ceremony, then Prabhupada gave class, and then I was the first person called up, Bhakta Sai. I was like, so I went up there, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had no coaching, no nothing. So Srila Prabhupada asked, "What are the 4 rules and regulations?" I had never heard that term before. I knew what the 4 regulative principles were, but when he said, "What are the 4 rules and regulations?" I was confused because I was only a devotee for a month. I had just read Nectar of Devotion, and there's lots of rules in there and different things listed, and had stage fright. I was there, the first one. There was hundreds and hundreds of devotees. There was 100 devotees getting initiated. And there was a huge amount of other devotees in the temple room, and I'm the first one up there. And I'm in shock because I don't know what he's talking about. And it's like you're standing in front of this powerful, pure devotee, and it's not an ordinary experience anyway, standing in front of the Guru getting initiated. So I just got stage fright, and I just froze because I didn't know what to say. So Brahmananda Maharaj came up to me and says, he whispered to me, so do you know the four rules? I said, what? And he goes, the four regulative principles. I said, oh, you mean no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, no eating meat, fish, and eggs, those ones? And he goes, yes. And I said, yes, I know those. And he goes, he turns around, he says, he knows them, Srila Prabhupada. So that was pretty crazy. Then Srila Prabhupada said, your name is Caitanya Chandra Das, and of course everybody's roaring, and Prabhupada's on a microphone, and we don't know what words he's talking in Sanskrit. We don't know. A lot of us didn't hear what our names were. We had to find out what our names were afterwards because we couldn't understand and couldn't remember it, and couldn't hear it properly. But it was so anyway. I was the first out of the 100 or so that got initiated by Prabhupada. There was a bhakta named Bhakta Jim on our bus, and he did a lot of the labor on the buses, and he was like a mechanic and different things. So, but he was always sleeping somewhere. You could always find him taking a nap somewhere. So when the initiation was going on, they called Bhakta Jim, and Jim was nowhere to be found, and someone said, well, he must be sleeping somewhere. For some reason I remember that because it was kind of funny, and unfortunate that Bhakta Jim missed his initiation because he was sleeping. Anyway, we had a wonderful initiation ceremony, and all the devotees at the end, there was like 5 fire sacrifices, 5 fires, for the yajna because there were so many people. So at the end, when you put the banana on the fire, after throwing the grains and everything on the fire and stand up, I could feel like the subtle form of my karma just being lifted over my head and off of me like a big mountain just got lifted off of me. So it was a very amazing experience to having felt that amazing karma being lifted. So it was like Prabhupada was very merciful. The next experience we had with Srila Prabhupada was, it was going to Mayapur the next year in 1976. Pretty much the entire Radha Damodar party went to India. It was the first time a 747 jet had ever landed in India. It was all full of devotees. There was probably maybe 10 other people that weren't devotees on the 747. So we had kirtan on the harinams around the big giant plane and wonderful prasadam, and they had to stop us from doing the harinams because it made the plane shake. And we landed in Calcutta, and there was a big greeting party there to greet the 747, and all of a sudden all the Hare Krishnas come off the plane. It was pretty wild. And then we flew to Calcutta and went to Mayapur. And Srila Prabhupada came and gave class every single day of the whole festival. 2 weeks in Mayapur and 2 weeks in Vrindavan. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, because he was in charge of the Radha Damodar party, and he was Prabhupada's secretary, he engaged us in services to Prabhupada directly. So we got to go into Srila Prabhupada's room for darshans. We got to guard Srila Prabhupada's door. We got to distribute the sweets to his guests. We got to serve prasadam to his guests. That was wonderful, because every day those things happened. Darshans were going on every day where people would come and see Prabhupada. So we would get to go there. And then one time the whole Radha Damodar party came in his room, and he spoke with whoever had questions. And so we got to be in the room with him, and that was really wonderful. So hearing him give class every day was very amazing. And one time I was walking around the temple, maybe at 2:30 or 3 in the morning or something like that, before Mangal Arati, which was at 4:30. and I was chanting quite loudly because I chant loud. And Prabhupada's secretary, Hari Sari Prabhu, comes out to the balcony and he yells down at me, "Prabhu, you're chanting too loudly and it's disturbing Prabhupada's translations." And I was like, oh no. I said, I didn't come there to offend Prabhupada. I came there to get purified by his association. Last thing I want to do is make some stupid offense. So I was really in anxiety. So during Mangal Arti, they made an announcement that there were people doing some things that weren't right because it's the Holy Dham and you have to behave yourself. And somebody was chanting so loudly it disturbed Prabhupada's translations. And anyway, that was me. So then I was really in anxiety because they made an announcement about me chanting too loud. So then I was stressed out the whole morning, totally in anxiety. So then when Prabhupada's Bhagavatam class came, I was standing near the door, near the stairs where Prabhupada would leave, listening to class because I wanted to stand up so I wouldn't fall asleep. And I wanted to be near the place where he walked out just so I could see him longer. I was a junior devotee. I wasn't one of the senior men who had the relationship of knowing Srila Prabhupada in person. I was just a new bhakta, new devotee. So anyway, during class, Srila Prabhupada was glorifying the holy names, quoting the verse, Nama Chintamani Krishnas Caitanya Rasa Vigraha Shuddha Purnam Nityamukto Binatvam Nama Namano. He's quoting part of the verse. And he's looking across the temple room at everybody. And then he stopped when he got to me, and he looked right into my eyes. And from his glance came this spiritual Shakti that went right into my eyes and deeply into my consciousness, into my heart. And I felt completely cleansed, purified, and loved that he accepted me, and don't worry about the offense, it wasn't a big deal. It was an amazing experience. And while he was looking at me, he said, do not think that the holy name is a material sound vibration. It's Purnam, perfect and complete. As he was talking to me, and then he continued speaking and moved his glance over, but I got the beautiful glance, and people who have heard, all the devotees who Srila Prabhupada had given that glance to have the same experience, that Prabhupada was able to look into your soul and see you more than you can see yourself, and it was an amazing experience. And the other amazing experiences there were kirtans in Srila Prabhupada's presence. We would do these, there was so many sannyasis and so many brahmacharis and so many brahmacharinis and hundreds of people in these kirtans with Srila Prabhupada. And he would walk around the inside and go behind the deity. There was a big walking area you could walk behind to circumambulate. And then on either side there was a bell. So Srila Prabhupada would stop and ring the bell during the kirtan. And everybody would be going crazy, following him around. As many could follow. Then some of us were on the inside going from side to side. When Srila Prabhupada would come walking around from behind the deities, we'd be there chanting and dancing in front of him. And just by him being there, and by his kindness and spiritual potency, just from dancing and chanting in kirtan, after some short time, you would no longer feel that you were in your material body. You would feel that you were a pure transcendental spirit soul, just kind of flying around the temple room dancing. Prabhupada's potency was so powerful that it just blasted you out of the material consciousness during these kirtans. And one time, because he would go around 3 times and ring the bell on both sides, and after the 3rd time, he went into like this ecstasy, this special ecstasy. I mean, he was always in ecstasy, but we got to feel it. All of a sudden, there was this giant wave of bliss that just overtook everyone. And everybody went, Hari Bol, and we all turned around, and it was Srila Prabhupada dancing in the middle of the temple room, jumping up and down, dancing, raising his hands, dancing and chanting. And he kind of inundated everybody with this ecstasy. And so it was like that. Being with Srila Prabhupada was not an ordinary situation at all. So then later we got to go with him on a Rath Yatra. We had the first Rath Yatra in New York. Tamal Krishna Maharaj again engaged me. I got to fan Srila Prabhupada while he was sitting on the Rath Yatra cart. And we again went to Detroit when Prabhupada came there to install the beautiful Gaura-Nitai deities. Our bus was there, our Radha Damodar bus was there. And we got to be with Srila Prabhupada. And he would hand out cookies during Guru Puja. They would always bake nice cookies. So during Guru Puja, he would hand out the cookies to the kids and to the mothers and then everybody else. So I was standing there holding a towel for Prabhupada to wipe his hands off next to the Vyasa-san. And after he was done, he wiped his fingers on the towel, and I actually stole the towel and kept it for many years and gave it to somebody. But then after that particular day, we carried his Vyasa-san out to the driveway to take a group photo with all the devotees. So after I was big and strong, so I carried one side of the Vyasa-san. And after we put it down, I sat down right there to get a good seat so I could look directly up and see Srila Prabhupada. I was sitting right next to the Vyasa-san. And as he was there waiting for them to get the photos set up, he was chanting, you know, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But you couldn't hear it. It was like, and the part you could hear was, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And I was watching him chant and listening, and whenever he would Hare Ram, his tears would just his eyes would just well up with tears, and I was just like, wow, he's in some kind of ecstasy, and here I am, this ignorant fool, lucky to be sitting here while he's experiencing some ecstatic love of Godhead, just chanting and crying, tears flowing from his eyes and attracting everybody's attention. That was a really sweet moment there in Detroit. And then again, we got to see him in Berkeley for the Rath Yatra, the San Francisco Rath Yatra. We got to see him there also. He gave a nice lecture there, and we got to do service, help him prepare the prasadam and serve the prasadam. It was a wonderful experience. And then again in India, I got to go the next year. I was actually living in El Paso, and I was praying to Lord Caitanya every single day to please let me go back to Mayapur and see Prabhupada, because it was such a powerful experience. I wanted to go back again. So when it came time, we had a certain amount of books we had to distribute and money to collect as a quota. And if we made the quota, then we could go to India. If we didn't make the quota, then we couldn't go. So I was like maybe $2 short of my quota for the daily average. And the person in front of me, I forget where he's from, his name was Lokaswamy, he couldn't get a passport to go to India. So I was the next one, so I got to go. So Lord Caitanya blessed me, put me through a little anxiety, but I got to go the second year, and that year Srila Prabhupada only gave one class. We came down to the temple room I think 3 times, but he only gave one class because he became very ill. And so we got to hear the class, but then later every day we were doing like in a Sringadev 24-hour kirtan. For many hours, I don't know if it was 24, but we sang for many hours to Lord Sringadev to please heal Srila Prabhupada if you so desired, please heal him. And then he didn't stay for the whole festival. We went to a special festival in Bombay. And we were hearing the reports of his preaching there, that he was so ill that if they had to carry him on the Vyasa-san, he was like laying down on the Vyasa-san. He couldn't really sit up. And then one of the devotees read this beautiful verse from Srimad Bhagavatam about how hogs, dogs, camels, and asses worship those who are similar to them as leaders. And so he read the verse in purport, and Srila Prabhupada began to speak. And he apologized that his health was not good. But within maybe 2 minutes, he was sitting up straight and just roaring like a lion, preaching to everybody. And at the end of the class, there was questions by some people who asked some pretty kind of off-the-wall questions. One lady, she said, Swamiji, this meditation that you're teaching is so taxing on the mind. and she didn't get any more words out. And Prabhupada said, "You are being taxed for so many nonsense things. Why not tax yourself for something good?" Next person asked the question, "Swamiji, what is the meaning of Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra?" The words Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, the first verses of the Bhagavad Gita. And they're talking about the holy place where the Battle of Kurukshetra took place. But most people there in India, a lot of them anyway, they think that it's just allegorical, that it just has some weird meaning, like, oh, our body's Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra is, whatever. So Prabhupada said, why are you trying to create a disturbance? You can go there on a train. Do not try and create a disturbance. So Prabhupada was like really fiery to the max. Just like not tolerating any nonsense. So then, after the class was over, all these thousands of people were coming to try and touch Prabhupada's feet. So Prabhupada asked the devotees next to him, he's surrounded by all the devotees, sannyasis and everybody, do you know why they're coming to touch my feet? It's one of those questions that you don't answer, you just listen. Do you know why they're coming to touch my feet? Everybody was silent. Prabhupada said, because I am freed from sex desire. So everybody was like, Jai Prabhupada, So that time in Mayapur was the last time I got to see Srila Prabhupada, that last class that he gave. And that was in 1977 in March. Anyway, I'm going to, many more pastimes, but I'm going to stop here for now. And I'll re-record some more in a little bit. So, Hare Krishna, thank you very much.